another episode of Power On Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Taylor, and with me is the premium, the creamium, the supremium. I'm done with trying to. Anywho, with me is Sushi B. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. What's going on, Taylor?
Getting a little cool. It's kind of cold in here. Not like cold, but it got warm and then it's kind of getting a little colder. So okay, it's a little chilly.
Oh, well, keep warm.
I'll try.
Yeah, good. I'm fighting a little bit of a nasal attack here. I don't know. It just sort of crept up on me this afternoon. So bear with me. If it starts to get unbearable, let me know and I'll flush it out if I can. Off air.
That's all right. I for about a week I was having allergies stuff, kind of like hay fever stuff.
Right.
And it was it's still kind of there, but it's not nearly as congested as it was, and I'm not blowing out 10 gallons of snot at a time.
That's good.
Yeah. So I hope you aren't eating, listeners, because that sounds kind of gross.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully not. And not with us is Greg. So
he's out breeding because he's a stud.
Yeah. For this episode, it'd probably be for lack of a better word, just easier for him not to be in it because this basically what this episode's about is talking about like kind of teaching English as a secondary language.
Yeah.
And that's not really Greg's wheelwell. So that's why. Sorry, Greg. We'll make sure to definitely rectify that.
He'll be back soon enough.
So. Right. Most definitely. So, but just wanted to kind of throw that out there. It's because of the topic. It's really not. It's not really. No, it's not in his wheel as I said. So
right.
I mean, He unless you just kind of want to sit there and not say anything.
Right.
Kind of thing.
It's just not the field of I wouldn't say expertise, but just not a field he's very versed in. It's just you and I have some experiences with it, so I just think it's a little easier for us to plod through it together.
Right. So, yeah, and I honestly, there's so many different ways that this can go, and I'm going to throw this out here now to the listeners. If I start to get emotional in any way, let that serve as what kind of experience it is. And also my last day was today for the public schools. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, it's kind of weird. It really hasn't dawned on me yet. So yeah. So Sushi, do you want to start us off? Maybe actually, maybe it would be good that you started us off because I can. So some people might know how my job was and stuff, but you are this kind of nebulous, murky unknown. I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how much light you want to shine in on what you've done and what you are doing, but I guess how did you kind of start teaching as English as a secondary language?
I'll do a little bit. I don't want to bore people to death, so I'll touch on a little bit of sort of how I got involved and such. Basically, after university, I acquired a teaching degree. Gone to university for 5 years, and I had a Bachelor of Arts degree, and I also had an after education degree, so I have an ed degree. And it's a kind of difficult field to get a job in a lot of places in North America. Maybe the culture of it has changed and they've started hiring younger teachers and stuff again. I'm not sure, but at least at the time, it was kind of difficult. And so I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with this degree? And there are actually a lot of opportunities for people with ed degrees to go into all kinds of different fields, whether it's working with the police or anything. It seems like it's a really good field just based on the fact that your skills are meant for teaching, but those skills are adaptable to a lot of other different kinds of jobs. Just based on, I think a lot of it has to do with the sort of communication skills you learn as a teacher. Mm. So a lot of jobs are willing to hire at least trained teachers for their positions. Anyways, I didn't really find any work, so I just started looking into teaching abroad. And that's just the basic story of it is that's what I did. I just looked into some jobs abroad and I found jobs in Korea and I was like, okay, let's give this a shot kind of thing. And it just sort of went from there. I haven't only taught in Korea. I spent some time in Taiwan as well for about a year. I did, not that I really needed to, but I just kind of felt like, oh, why not? I took a TEFL course in Thailand for about a month.
Now, would you explain what TEFL is, just so that people
So,
listening, because they
right,
probably
right, for sure.
right.
Hopefully, yeah, this we didn't really touch on. Hopefully, this episode isn't boring people to death, but just to get a general idea of what ESL is and stuff.
Well, that, and I mean, I think there might be some people listening who might
May want to get
right, right, and since
involved.
we have two very different paths to how we took it to get here, kind of thing. I mean, you have your way and then my way. They are very different. So if somebody's in between, or one way or the other, they might, I don't know, it might pique their interest in one way or another.
For sure. So anyways, TEFL is just teaching English as a foreign language. There's also TESOL, which is teaching English as a secondary language? Is that?
That sounds right. I just know yeah, that sounds about right. I think
There's a few like different programs that are essentially the same thing, but sometimes their focus is a little bit different.
A little bit of a nuance.
Right. With TEFL, it's like teaching English as a foreign language. You might approach it differently than if you're teaching it as a second language. I personally don't really see what the divide is, but a lot of these programs will try to encourage you that they are different. And perhaps some jobs would prefer one of those certificates more than the other. But anyways, I was in Thailand for about a month doing that, just kind of hanging out, but kind of doing it. And I was really fortunate to do a little bit of teaching there as part of the program. I actually got to go to a sort of teenage detention type center to teach a lesson. And that was quite interesting, very interesting experience, just being around these kids that had kind of been abandoned or had run away from home and were kind of considered somewhat rebellious and, like not necessarily a detriment to society, but certainly these schools were trying to help them get reintegrated into society and be good people and such. I don't know what kind of crimes or if they even committed crimes, if that was totally what they were in there for, but most of the kids were really good. And I got to teach, it was kind of sad actually, I got to teach some kids that were victims of the giant tsunami that had hit in Phuket. I don't know the full story of all of them. There's a lot of kids in the classes, about maybe 20 or so. And we had heard obviously some stories that some of the kids had lost their families and they were living in this sort of orphanage area. And we came in to give a lesson in English and such. So it was a nice experience to see these different ways that kids are sort of approaching English, but also just their lifestyle and such. And but yeah, that was a really interesting time for sure. And yeah, especially I guess those places are where I've been doing most of the teaching. I've definitely looked into Japan and China and some of these other places, and I had at one point some aspirations of going to Japan and China, but I just haven't. So
I was going to say, when you first started looking, were you pretty much thinking Asia, or were you kind of open to, I don't know if they have many opportunities in Africa or in South America? Or...
There's definitely opportunities in South America.
Okay.
And there are some in Europe as well. I've not kept like high tabs on the stuff, but I do look once in a while. I know in Eastern Europe there are definitely opportunities, and in some of Western Europe, like if I recall, Spain.
No, okay.
And the Czech Republic, which is I mean sort of east-west, right? It's sort of in the middle there, but
kind of smack dab.
right. But there's definitely the Czech Republic and Hungary and definitely some places around there. Not all are coming to mind, but there are opportunities in those places. Turkey. I'm not sure about Africa. I haven't seen a lot. I presume there are some opportunities, but with much of Africa being so French dominated, I don't know if there's much of a demand at this point, but maybe in 20 years or 30 years there might be.
Right, it seems that most of the people that tend to go that go abroad to Africa, not for just travel and stuff, but to work there, might also be doing it as kind of relief efforts for certain tragedies that are kind of occurring in
Right.
Africa and stuff with yeah.
Various places.
Which is really unfortunate. I do know there's somebody on YouTube that I follow, Caleb Elijah. He does this awesome kind of guitar stuff,
Mhm.
music for games and stuff. He spent 2 or 3 years there with doing that with his family, and they were doing kind of relief effort work and stuff, which was pretty cool. So,
Right, right. Yeah, definitely South America does have as well. The biggest drawback with South America is many people are looking to acquire some savings for student loans and such,
mm,
and it's quite hard to sort of make up the money. You can make plenty of money to live quite comfortably in South America, but not enough to sort of pay back student loans as well as live fairly well and
mm.
such. But there's opportunities in a lot of places. You just have to look hard enough for sure.
Right, and I know that there's a lot of people that maybe it's just because of the where are who I've associated with and stuff. That a lot of them always gear towards Japan, a couple towards China,
Hmm.
and maybe a couple towards Korea, but the bulk tend to aim for Japan, and that's because of games or anime and stuff like that.
Right, right.
And it's not quite necessarily because, oh, I want to teach English, or at least kind of try to teach English. It's more of, oh, I like Japan,
Right.
and we'll get into that a little bit later. But
Yeah, we can.
yeah, but with what you've done so far, what's the and I'm no, I'm peppering questions in here, but
That's fine.
what's the age group that you generally dealt with? I know you said you did the kind of teenage delinquency or kind of thing, but as a whole, what age range do you generally teach?
Generally for myself, I have done some work with middle school kids and stuff like junior high, but generally speaking, it's actually kindergarten kids and elementary kids.
Okay, all right.
The bulk of it is actually kindergarten kids for the most part.
Yeah, around
Uh,
5, 6 years old, or
right, they have the sort of age uh, difference with us, or most countries in Korea and in China and Taiwan. If I recall, a little foggy on that, but they add a year to their actual birth age.
that's how
Uh,
they get so old, people.
just they kind of consider conception. So once the child is acknowledged in the womb, that they give an extra year to the kid. I don't know the whole historical backstory on why that is, but so let's say if I'm teaching a group of kindergarten students and they come in and I'm told they're 6 years old, well, they're actually 5 years old from when they were actually born.
Mm.
So that kind of can get confusing when you first start teaching kids because you're thinking, well, developmentally speaking, this is for people who have studied child psychology and stuff. They'll be thinking, well, why can't this kid do this? They're supposed to be 6. And then you're like, oh, wait a second. They're actually only about 5, sometimes
Right.
4. Sometimes they're 2 years behind, depending when their birthday is. If their birthday is December 31st, the parents will say, oh, they're actually 3. And you're like, no, they're a day old. Like it's really confusing. So that kind of becomes a problem. But generally speaking, yes, kindergarten are the bulk of where I've spent most of my time teaching. And I think for yourself has been mostly elementary. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. I would say that's probably the. It's a little hard. I have to go into a bit of detail about it, but I don't know if you want to jump to me right just yet, or kind of.
We can just play off each other. It's fine.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. Well, I mean, yeah. But for example, I came to Japan 4.5 years ago. From what had happened was I was the president of my Japanese club at the university I went to, and at that time there was somebody who came back. They had some not issues with the company, but personal issues, and they had to come back for. And they spoke to my club, and this guy, Nick. I'm gonna just drop names because it's easier than to just keep on referring to them,
The
referring to
people.
as these guys,
Right.
this dude. But Nick, he was really he talked to the Japanese club and stuff, and had really fond, wonderful things to say. And he showed us pictures and stuff of his time working as an ALT, which is an assistant language teacher. Now, when I went into college, I wanted to be a chemistry teacher. Weird, right? Kind of. I could probably be like the crazy chem teacher that like blows up a lab or something. Would probably that would probably be me.
Eyebrows are missing.
Yeah, yeah. But as I was studying and stuff, I drifted away from chemistry. I wasn't difficult. I just kind of drifted away from it. I didn't find enjoyment out of it, and I picked up Asian studies.
Mm.
That was my major. So where I wanted to be a chemistry teacher, so I was kind of starting to do some of the no, I don't want to say premature, but very early stages of doing educational studies and stuff in chemistry. I slowly transitioned over into just things Asia, so Chinese modern history, Balinese music, Korean history, Japanese history, politics and stuff. And I did that. And from that, I talked to Nick and stuff, and I was like, I'm really interested in doing this, because he not only did he talk about it, but he's like, yeah, if you are interested, let me know, and I'll talk with the company I work for now, and see, if there's any sort of availability and whatnot, see what we can do. And it took that was in like in March or April or something, but I met up with him again to do like a face-to-face interview with him, and then I did a few interviews through Skype and stuff with the company, and I came over in August. And so they had this kind of training period and stuff where I actually went and taught at the Coast Guard. So these
Hmm.
are like 50, 40, 30, 30, 40, 50-year-old men, and yeah, you teach them some of the things that they have to say to different boats and stuff as they're trying to get in and out of this kind of smaller section, because it kind of narrows in, and then it kind of it's called Issei Bay. Issei Bay, it narrows, but then it kind of spreads out. And so there's this strip of water where they need to go through called Irogo Suido, like Irogo, like water route that they have to go through, and they have to be like, hey, gotta go this speed. This is the speed limit, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Not like that exactly, but
Right.
that was that was literally my first teaching experience for like the English as kind of secondary language kind of thing, and
Hmm.
it was different because I I didn't know what to expect of myself or what to do. I came as a very, very, very kind of, oh, I don't want to say naive, but just very blank slate when it came to everything. I was just like, okay, we'll do what we can. I not like I wanted to be in Japan. I was kind of one of those people that just wanted to be in Japan, and was like, let's do this teaching thing. I think it'd be interesting. I wanted to be a chemistry teacher. If that doesn't work out, let's see how teaching English is. And so, but because I hadn't really continued my studies in the educational field, I was kind of like,
Little drifter.
right. I was a bit unsure what to do with myself and stuff, and so I did these little bit of training. And I was like, okay, and I started up a couple weeks later as an ALT, assistant language teacher, and
Hmm.
for my situation, I I it varied from year to year, but for the most part, I would go to anywhere from five, well, yeah, no, four to uh, six elementary schools. And each of these elementary schools, depending on the size of the class, if there was two classes per grade, I would go there 2 days a month at least, or I would only go to them once a month. And I know that's not a lot. So you like for me, I would see these kids, once or twice a month, and I would teach either all of the grades or like third to sixth grade, and I would be some of the only experience that these kids would have with English.
Right.
So they're going to be very, very beginner unless they're going to a cram school or an after school and that sort of thing. And in the city I worked in, the fifth and sixth grade interacted with a Japanese teacher who taught them English once a week.
Mm.
And out of a very, for lack of a better word, a very poorly scripted book that sometimes they never used. I didn't use it either. I mean, it's good to kind of it's not terrible, but it's not good personally thinking. But anywho, would do that, and then in those other days that I did not go to the elementary schools, I would go to middle school. And
Mm.
there, depending on the teacher, like because they with the elementary schools, it's just like a part-time teacher coming in. The middle schools, they have a Japanese teacher that teaches English, like full-time kind of thing. They're there every day. That's what they do. They have their own kind of homeroom kind of thing. And depending on the teacher, it'd be great. We could kind of exchange ideas and be like, oh, let's kind of teach it this way, or let's teach it this way, or where some other teachers have a method that they stick to, and you just kind of go for the ride.
Right.
So, and I mean, I understand that that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. So where I would have complete and total freedom with my elementary schools, I would be a lot more. I don't want to say shackled. That's not. I would. It would be much more. Kind of in governance with what the teachers were willing to allow, sort
Right.
of thing. So yeah. So yeah, I guess that's the long answer to. Yeah, I teach at elementary schools and middle schools. So, but I also do cram school stuff afterwards, and we can get into that at a different point in time.
Sure.
Whew. Uh, Sorry, there.
Where do we steer this ship from here, kind of thing?
I was a bit thirsty. Sorry about that. But actually, I want to get into like because yours is a lot different. What you do now is a lot different than what I do because you see these kids every day, right?
Right.
So you like what do you have a certain kind of lesson material that you have to teach, or do you go in at the like during the weekend? Do you say, all right, this is what I want to try to kind of convey to these kids? How long are your lessons? What get into the details, Mr. Sushibi?
Right now, the place I'm at is quite structured. They already have a schedule that's followed every day. So each day is a little bit different. They have a science class or an art class or what have you, but they know the weekly schedule. They know more or less what class is coming next. It's posted right out of their class. So these kids, they're in the same class. They're always together. They're in small groups. And you just, you go in, you've got your lesson ready. You just follow the schedule. So today we're going to do English class here for this 40-minute block. And you've got your textbook and you plan it out however you want to do it. You want to start the lesson with a game, go for it. If you want to do some sort of vocabulary review, it's really up to you. Now, I don't want to detract from that too much, but I've taught at a lot of different places. So kind of like in your situation where you had said you're a bit not necessarily controlled, but you do have to sort of follow what a co-teacher would like. So I've been in the situations where I've had a co-teacher that's been in the class the entire time with a group of 25, 30 kids. And I've been in classes where I'm totally in control. No one is around. It's just me. And everyone's got their sort of comfort level with that sort of teaching. But right now I don't have that. I've essentially got the freedom to just do the lesson the way I please.
So she'd be solo in class.
Well, and that's fine because just from studying to be a teacher, it's okay. I don't have discomfort with that, and having some experience doing the job is fine, right? Someone getting dropped in, it's not. Some people are terrified, but I would say most people are just more unsure of how to manage the time, kind of thing.
No, that's a tricky
Yeah,
one.
let's
Managing
get into
time
that a
is
bit.
tricky.
Yeah, down the road too. We're pushing a lot of stuff back because there's obviously a lot
A lot of
we
stuff.
can cover. But but basically, yeah, I'm in full control of what I would like to do for the day. So if I want to review vocabulary for 40 minutes, it's my choice if I want to do that. If I want to take an hour and a half to do this science project because I think it's effective for them, and sometimes it's because they are kindergarten kids. Sometimes if I'll extend the science time because it's something fun that they've made today. They've made a little propeller thing that they can throw up and it spins or whatever. And so, okay, you guys can have 5 minutes to just kind of fool around and play with that little science project you have there. And yeah, it gives me a chance to sort of collect my thoughts too. And like, okay, we're going to do this next as soon as they're done and get them clean up and so forth. But it also depends on class sizes. As I said, I have had classes where there's 25, 30 kids. So it's... It really depends. It depends. You just start knowing after a while. Every class is different, but after about a month, 2, 3 months, you should be sort of in a good groove where you're like, okay, I figured out what these kids are good at, which kids have discipline issues, this and this and this. Okay, this is what I should be doing today. And I kind of get the feeling that's sort of how yours goes, except that in your case, you have a much more difficult challenge with these kids are just seeing one person a month or sometimes more, but generally, as you said, for a month, and you've got to make English fun for them.
Right. So it's trying to balance, kind of, because you get those kids. I mean, I know, putting myself into their shoes, if I was a kid at that age and there was some random person, because somebody, I do remember as a kid there being like somebody who briefly taught for about 2 or 3 weeks, briefly taught us Spanish.
Okay.
I remember enjoying that, but I know that as a kid, that if I did not enjoy that for whatever reason, that teacher is probably going to hate me.
Right.
Because I mean, because it happens with the kids that I've had before, where they're kind of new to me, and I'm trying to figure out how they are.
Right.
But you always get these kids where I'll try to explain something, but I don't want to just say it in Japanese to them.
Right.
What I want to say is explain it to them in English, and also through gestures, kind of physical motion of it, so the kids can understand. Okay,
A
they
little
can see it.
Pictionary.
Right. Well, just kind of through explaining different games and stuff or whatever, and it, like some kids don't even want to think about it at all. They don't want to take the moment to see what the hell I'm doing,
Right.
and be like, oh, this makes sense if I just paid attention for the 30 seconds that he was asking me for. But they they go to "Imi ga wakaran," and you're like, hold it. You don't want to be physically violent towards the kids,
Right.
but you just want to be kind of like quiet.
The old fist on the table. Quiet.
No. I got angry, I think, once the whole time I've taught, and that was I think because I was just having a bad day. But
I think in
yeah,
your case, it's harder to get angry. If you see the kids all the time every day, it's
You could
easier to get
yeah.
angry because you have an expectation after a certain point. You know what the kids are capable
Right.
of, and you know when the kids are just goofing off and not listening. But when you see them once a month for however long the period is, let's say an hour, you might get a little upset if they're not following you kind of thing, but it's almost expected to a point.
Well, right, exactly. Like the one of the school that I got angry at, it wasn't like I was throwing things. I like I hit the I hit my like the little podium thing that I was standing at, because they usually have like the wooden podiums in front of class and stuff. And I hit that with like a bunch of cards I was holding, because a couple of the kids were being really, really obnoxious and repeating something, and they were saying it inappropriately wrong with every word, and I'm just like, okay, guys, you gotta stop. I was, I think it was just, it was a very, when I first started going to that school, I was warned that they were kind of obnoxious, and there was a lot of kids, and it was very early on. I was like, you're driving me batty,
Huh.
kind of. But over time, they came to love me. Giant fist of anger, but no, not quite. No, they've mellowed out a lot since I've been there. So, but I could see where having them on a much more regular basis can really drive you up the wall.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's uh, the. You said 25 or so kids. Is that the general size that you have, or
Not right now. No, no.
not right
That
now?
was
It's
at
much
a
smaller.
different school. That was
Okay.
at a school I was doing in Taiwan. So,
Okay.
no, there's much smaller groups right now, especially for kindergarten. It really depends on the schools, but a lot of the schools, like public schools, have it differently. Public schools, you might have big groups of,
Yep.
20, 25, 30, usually around that range. Usually not more than that, but usually around that range. But then at private schools, you might have groups of 10, 15, not usually more than 15. Um, so it really depends. But an example, like in Thailand, when I was doing the TEFL and they're preparing us, they're like, okay, and this could be the class size, and they're like, well, you're probably gonna have kids of groups of 50 to 60, and I'm thinking, okay, this is now becoming like a university lecture almost, like at this rate. And
Right.
think these are kids, like elementary and middle school kids, and how challenging that can be. Um, some kids tapping his
Barely.
pencil to distract you, or some other kid's got a discipline thing going on with them. You've got one kid that could be having a fist fight on this side of the class, and then you've got, all the way on the other side of this huge group of kids, and you're trying to control it. And so it's tough. I mean, it's a tough part of the job, and you kind of got to learn really fast that you can't just be buddy with them.
Right,
And
right, right.
that's a hard thing to do, because you don't want, especially as a young teacher, even still now, I'm just like, oh, I really don't want to have to raise my voice or discipline these kids, but I have to. If I don't, they're just going to walk all over me.
Mm, yeah, I mean, even with when you're with older students and stuff, sure, you would like to, you want to be on a very kind of amiable, I think it's the word I want, kind of in a relation, but you don't want it to be just kind of like buddy. The the teachers and professors that I've had where it's just buddy have probably been the worst teachers, where they try to be buddy with you,
Right.
are probably the worst teachers I've ever had. And the
Not
ones that,
surprising.
yeah, and the ones that are, are really enjoyable to talk to. I love talking with them and stuff, but they are like, you're the student, I'm the teacher.
Right.
There's this divide. Those have probably been the best ones, that where they A, they recognize the divide, and B, make sure that you know the divide, and not in any kind of like, oh, you are a punk
Right.
little
Looking
bee.
down upon the students, or
No, it's yours. No, you're the student. That's really that's all it is. It's not, yeah. That's, but making sure they know that kind of divide is very important.
right. And you can tell when a teacher is trying to play that degrading game kind of thing, like I have the power and you don't,
The
such. But
power.
He-Man is your teacher. Um, She-Ra. But
Oh
you
goodness.
definitely get that feeling from specific teachers and stuff. And
Mm.
uh, you depends. I mean, some maybe some students react well to that. I don't know, but generally speaking, you have to have a nice balance of uh, almost like a talk show openness with the kids, but also have a nice firm sternness with them as well.
Mm.
Uh, can depend on age. High school kids, a little bit trickier than, let's say, elementary kids. Seems to be with the high school kids, the more open you are with them to a degree, the better relationship you will have with the students.
Right.
Whereas the younger kids, if you're a little more stern with them, it seems like the relationship's a little bit better with them. If you try to be open with them, you generally can't
Yeah.
have that kind of discussion you might want to have with them. Just you could say something as simple as sporting event over the weekend. The conversation you obviously have with the high school kid over that is going to be much, much different than the elementary student.
Right, right,
So
right,
just in that kind of regard, you got to figure out where your priorities sort of lie with being a strict teacher and being a kind teacher. But yeah, anyways, you know what I wanted to touch on, Taylor, before we get into some more of, I guess, kind of our personal stuff, and it's
right.
it's going to sort of come out of the blue a little bit here, and I apologize
Okay.
for that. But I would like to sort of get and your opinion on this, and I just kind of sat down before we did this topic, and I just wrote down a few notes about just getting into the ESL realm as a whole.
Mhm.
Now, this doesn't necessarily apply to all positions and all countries and everything, but we can kind of follow this as a bit of a rule of thumb with some of the jobs anyways. Uh, and I was kind of looking for your opinion on some of this stuff. And I just wrote down a few kind of quick notes here. The first one is just regarding like researching the position, just like you would for any job.
Mm.
Taking the time, learning about if let's say you apply to 4 countries, well, take some time to at least learn something about where you're going to work, what the city is, uh, you know, maybe a few basic cultural things if you can. You don't necessarily have to know the language. That's a little tougher, especially if you're looking at 4 or 5 countries or something. But definitely look at, some cultural things, where the place is, try to find some things that are around the city where you might live and such. Um, I don't know if you can expand on that at all.
Yeah, having kind of done your homework with the area is a good plus. Uh, I know that some people, because this is just what I know, like I got really really fortunate with my my situation where it just kind of happened
Right.
without me having to really try too horribly much or kind of applying to a whole bunch of different places. It just happened for me, but I know a lot of people that do JET. I think you know
Right.
JET. JET's the Japanese English. What's the is it teachers? Is that I
No,
don't know what
I've
the
not looked at Jet in a long time, so.
so or I never did. I did not ever want to do that. Not that um, like when I take it back. Never is probably the wrong is definitely the wrong word to use. When I was a freshman in university, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, and then it kind of went away. Like it just from what I've heard from other people, it's really random. There's some places there's a bit of an animosity towards Jet because of previous Jet people.
Mhm.
Plus the for when people in the teaching community in the area find out how much jet people make compared to what others make and how little they pay for a lot of their
Right.
things. Not saying that every jet is the same and not trying to bash jet or anything. And this is more of what I've noticed is that a lot of Japanese people kind of get a little towards jet.
Mhm.
Um, because if they kind of see it as a little bit of a financial drain because some of them because a lot of them, not all of them, but there definitely are some of them that will basically come in really at the last minute because say for example they need to be in by 8:15. They'll come in at 8:15
Right.
and then they'll leave after their last
So
class.
right at 6 o'clock kind of thing if they're done at
No,
6.
no, huh?
Well, I'm
No,
just
no,
saying, let's
no.
just say they're done at 6 o'clock. They're out at 6 o'clock.
Right, right, yeah, but much earlier. They
It's just an example.
so or they yeah, or if they have a free period, they do nothing but kind of sit at their desk and just kind of fondle their phone, their smartphone,
Mhm.
and kiss sweet nothings towards it, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so there's very little interaction that they're having with the school, the students, the teachers. That's I would say is another kind of important thing later, but
There to make a buck.
right. And so they get buried towards that sort of thing.
Right.
Not everyone, but some jet are loved and respected. But I do know that in some instances it's not so sunshine lollipops kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, And so, like with Jet, it's very random where might get placed and sort of thing. So it's a little harder to understand that. And they do, from what I've heard, have these kind of I don't I would like before you start working there, they have these I don't want to say meetings, but these kind of classes to kind of gear you up for it.
Right.
There's a bit of a process to it, but I had none of that. I was pretty much I talked with Nick and I looked at the area myself. It's like, okay, this is cool. This is really nice. Got to get used to driving. If you are not used to driving in a foreign country, which a lot of people aren't, it's an experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, learn those rows of the rule, the roads of the Jesus, the rules of the roads. It's been a long day. It's been a long 2, 3, 4 days. It's been a long week. It's been a long month. But
It's been a long life.
it's been a long life. But yeah. So I doing some groundwork as best as you can is a really good idea. Knowing some of the language in regards to very simple phrases would be a good thing. Having an openness to learning those languages is, I would say, probably a very, very important thing because a lot of people are very stubborn with just, I know English, fuck all y'all, I'm not gonna like try to learn the language, or I tried but I gave up on it.
Right.
At least give an effort when you're trying to converse with people,
Mm.
when you're in their homeland and stuff. It's I don't know. I guess that's what I'd have to add to that.
All right. Well, just expand a bit on the research. There's so many online resources now to see where the cities are and get opinions. And I would also suggest, if you can, contact somebody at the place that you're going to work that is not a part of the administration to get their opinions on the school or schools that you could be working at and the area and on all that stuff. If you can get somebody who's not in the admin, because of course the admin's going to keep selling you this pitch, right? They're not going to tell you everything that actually happens. You want to get somebody that's sort of doing the grunt work, who already works there and can tell you, okay, we actually have to do this despite what the contract says. We actually have to
That's a good
hand in this sort of document every week, or we have to do this homework assignment every day or something. That's really important. That leads into the next point about contracts, and that is be very thorough with the contract and ask tons of questions about the contract. There are plenty of jobs that I have applied to and looked at where the contracts are completely out of date, or there are things that are on there that do not apply anymore, or there are things that are not on there that completely apply now. So you need to be really careful about looking at contracts. Don't just look and see a dollar sign and say, wow, that's a lot of money per month, and then be done with it. You need to look at everything. What kind of housing accommodation is provided, if at all? What kind of benefits do you get? Do you get health care? Do you get flight tickets? What kind of things do you get? What are the working hours, the exact working hours? What are the responsibilities as a teacher? You need to look at all of these things. Don't just take it for granted and say, well, I'll just sign on the dotted line and be done with it.
And that goes for anything, really.
It does, but I think people are even worse when it comes to these contracts. They're just like, they're like, I don't want to say people are desperate. Like, I was in this situation where I was down to my last dollars basically before I left. And, I looked at the contract and stuff, and it wasn't the worst school. I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed being with the people that were there, but the school itself wasn't that great.
That seems to be the case with a few things.
Right.
You like working with the people, but you don't quite like
the place itself isn't that great. So
right.
That's often actually with a lot of jobs, but you got to be careful with that kind of thing. If you're going through a recruiter, take a lot of what they say with a grain of salt. You got to remember they're throwing you the pitch just like the company itself is, because they make money on everyone that comes over. That's all their bottom line is, essentially. They will care about you until you get into the country, and then they don't care anymore because they've got their money.
Gotcha, bitch.
Right. So you got to be careful about that kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't know if you have anything to add about contracts or.
No, you bring up some very good points about making sure, well, if feasibly possible, talking to people that work there,
Mhm.
that's, as you said, doing the grunt work kind of thing,
Right.
because, yeah, a company will pitch you, whatever you want to hear if they like if they like what they've read about you and they like interacting with you and whatnot, yeah, they're gonna make it to where it seems like nothing's wrong, everything's the best, it's awesome, everybody loves it here, it's great, we party kind
Right.
of thing, and then
It's
you
never the
come
case.
right,
Never.
and I mean even like with some of the people that are currently working for a company, as a person you've got to listen to what they're saying and interpret it for yourself, because I mean some people are going to, maybe they're not going to be blunt about things, maybe they are very kind of towards the company, but they're
Right.
not going to be dickish about it. They're going to be like, oh, it's
Probably
not
a little
bad.
dull.
Right. So they're going to kind of blunt whatever
Unless they're
criticisms they
leaving
may
right
have.
away. If they're leaving right away, they might be really sharp about what they have when it comes to opinions about certain
Right.
people, about things that are being run a certain way.
And
Then you might get some harsh criticisms. But in
right.
all
That
honesty, the company itself probably wouldn't let you speak to that person, though. They would choose somebody else to speak to you, most likely.
right. Yeah, it's and so I mean um you're going to have to be I don't want to say cautious about it, but make sure you have your head on your shoulders.
Right.
Don't just, sign whatever. Okay, let's do this. Okay, kind of thing. I'm in that country. Let's
Right.
party. Don't know. That's the absolute worst attitude to have. Um, I personally, because you're going to be setting yourself up for a very
A hard
rough
fall.
time. Right. So,
We can talk about that after too. Just a couple of quick things here to note as well. Once you get to the school, um, I would say first and foremost is try to meet everyone, even briefly, that works there as much as possible. It can be a little hard. Also take into account that this is not an easy job. There's plenty of people, not as much as before when I first started, but there's still plenty of people that come over and just think this is a cakewalk. They think it's money in the bank and teaching English is nothing. I don't got to do nothing. I just walk in. I'm
and
just going to talk to these kids and that's it.
that's Jet. That's what some of
Well,
the
that's
Jet
not
people
only
feel, and
Jet.
that's,
That's
well,
that's a
that's what I'm
lot of
saying.
companies and a lot of recruiters are just like, yeah, whatever. You got bachelor's degree in anything, we'll take you kind of thing. Um, and that's a huge problem. I mean, a lot of people are just like, oh, it's a year-long vacation. I'm just going to make a bunch of money.
Mm,
I'm going to
right.
have a good time. And by all means, have a good time. You want to go out and have some beers and everything. That's great. That's your own time. But
Right.
at work, you still need to be professional about what you're doing. Uh, and far too many people just don't take it as is. They're just like, whatever. I don't
Yeah.
like this country I'm in now. I don't like this job. So I'm just going to, whatever, dog it all day. It doesn't really matter.
And that's
It's party time.
something I was alluding to earlier is you do have those people that come in and either they think it's going to be sunshine and lollipops, roads paved in gold, fountains of honey, it's going to be the super duper bomb, I'm going to party all the time, and
Showers of
they
chocolate milk.
and they take this whole this endeavor as pretty much all about me. And
Right.
when you're teaching, it doesn't matter what you're teaching. It cannot be about you.
Right.
And it's about teaching. It's about the students,
Right.
whether
It's
they're
supposed to
kids
be
or
a
they're adults
selfless
or whatever.
job. It really is.
Right. And yeah, I'm not trying to bullshit and be like, oh, it's such a, but I mean, I'm just saying that's for teaching to me was, um, I can pretty much use that in the past tense now, but it was about being selfless and making sure that the students were learning something and enjoying what they were learning. And sure, you can do it in such a way that you're having fun too, but that it's not about you. It's not about you going out and having fun parties. It's not about you having a pissy time, and because I'll bring up a good example. There was somebody who worked as an ALT at one of the middle schools last year that I happened to go to this year. And before I started at that school, this individual had nothing nice to say about the middle school.
Hmm.
They were like, no, they're a bunch of back assward kids. They don't talk to me at all. They're just so they ignore me, and the teachers ignore me, and just kind of this vile, putrid, just hatred, just kind of spewing out of this person.
Hmm.
And so I was kind of like, what the fuck happened here,
Right.
kind of thing. Like the schools I had been to, yeah, sure, you're gonna have kids that don't talk to you. They're kids. They're middle school kids at that. Middle school for me was horrific. It was horrible. It was the worst fucking time of my life, and that was more because of me than anything else. But for some kids, it's not fun. Some kids don't. Some kids don't want to talk to you. They don't have to fucking talk to you,
Right.
kind of thing. I mean, for starters, do what you can if they because you know you eat like we eat lunch with the kids and stuff, and so you know if they don't want to talk, they don't want to talk. How fucking hard is that? If they want to read a book, by all means read a book. I'm not gonna like sit here and be like, "Hi, how
Get
you
in your
doing?"
face. Yeah.
Right. It's not you know, if you talk or kind of chat, you know, I'll bring up something if they're kind of like, yeah, okay, you don't want to talk, fine, whatever. Kind of just, you know, whatever, just chill. Um, but this person was so hateful about it. And so when I was getting ready to start going to the school, I was kind of like, how the fuck are these kids?
Right.
I was curious. I was like, everywhere I'd been, you know, I pretty much managed it. You know, really, really got close with you know, not just teaching with the kids, but you know, also the teachers. And I get there and it's nothing like how this person had mentioned it at all. Sure, you have certain kids that are very, very reserved, don't want to talk to you for whatever reason. Maybe they think that you don't speak Japanese or something, or they don't, because a lot of them don't, or they just don't want to talk in English. They might not even like English. Gasp, shock, horror right now. But I mean, that happens. It fucking happens. And so it's just, I had a great time, had a wonderful time. Sure, it was sad. I only had a year with them, and a year for me was only, you know, 5-6 weeks of time.
Right.
It's really finite, and so yeah, I don't know where the hell I was going with that, but yeah, just had to get that out. Well, no, I know people that don't enjoy it, people that are, you know, only thinking about how it affects them and how this is bullshit when they don't do things for me and like accommodate me to make things better for me and make everything easy for me. Me. It's not about me,
Right.
kind of thing. That's grr, and
Arg.
arg. So yeah, so.
Fair enough. Um, Kind of going back to that point about when you do start at the school, I think it's really important to be flexible. You've got to understand that it's not run the same way that you might be accustomed to from wherever you're from. And it will be frustrating. Believe me, I've had lots of situations where I've had employers or co-teachers or what have you that have been very frustrating in a lot of ways. But you have to be flexible with them in as much as possible. I know there's probably going to become some kind of breaking point where you have to just put your foot down and be like, yes or no. But you've got to be really flexible to changes at schools. You know, this is very normal for most of the places I was working at in all these different places, where it was this morning seemed like, okay, we're going to start this schedule, no problem. And then it's bang. Oh, geez, we forgot that we've got to have this this field trip or something right away. Or oh, you know, this parent called in and some kid had a rough go of it or something, or what have you. So we've got to change the schedule to be a Friday schedule today or something and whatnot. Or, oh, I need this document right now, even though you've don't even have the document anywhere at hand, even close at hand. This stuff happens. It comes up a lot. It's very, at least in Korea and Taiwan wasn't as bad, but it happened. It's quite normal for things to just come up very suddenly and things to just roll along and it be expected to be completed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
very
I get that.
normal.
Well, because I was hired through company, so it's a cram school, and so you have people that do the cram school stuff. But I was hired through the cram school to be an ALT. And so there will be instances where something will happen at the cram school and I need to fill in or something,
Right.
or I need to come in, and those make my days very lengthy. So,
Usually a little
uh,
grumble worthy.
right, well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, for example,
I
yesterday,
think it
this happened
depends.
yesterday. Uh, yeah, exactly. Yesterday came in. I knew it was coming, so which makes it easier. You can brace yourself for it
Right.
mentally and stuff. But I left around 7 something in the morning, and I did not get home until 11 p.m.
Right.
And I know some people, work double shifts and stuff. And I'm not saying, oh my God, it's the hardest thing in the world kind of thing. But no, I'm driving. Thankfully, the school I was at yesterday was closer, so altogether drove probably only an hour and 20 minutes total.
Mm.
Usually when I'm driving, it's an hour and some change one way. So I'm usually driving 2 hours a day, but a little less. And then I had to help train somebody and kind of be with them for classes, and didn't get home until close to 11. And you got to be ready to deal with those kind of things, or get a call from bosses and stuff like an hour or two beforehand, or kind of late, like we're gonna need you tomorrow for something.
Right.
Kind of yeah, you got to be flexible.
Right. Yeah, it kind of goes without saying, just as you said, sort of brace yourself for this kind of cultural and what's the word I'm looking for?
Expected.
Well,
I don't know.
like cultural, but also
Demanding.
just within business sense, this is very different than what we might expect.
No, okay.
Just the procedures are just so different. You know, when we used to cram in university for a test or something, well, that's kind of every day at a business. It's like, we need this stuff done now, even though they knew three, four,
It should have
five
been
weeks
done.
ago that this
Right.
date was circled, like this had to be done. And then it's an hour before deadline and they're like, oh my God, you guys all have to stay here until 9 tonight. We got to do this kind of thing. This is
Right.
unfortunately a very normal circumstance at times. Not so much with teaching, but things like that do arise where it's like your boss will come up to you. I've got to go to immigration. If I don't go within the next 30 minutes, you're going to get deported kind of thing. That can happen, but it's a little rare. But that stuff might happen. But it's more like deadlines through the company and such. But anyways, the last two things I just wanted to say were in a classroom. I know we're kind of trying to touch on a lot of things, and it's going to be
I know.
impossible.
To get everything.
And you and I, even though we have a nice amount of experience, of course, we don't know everything, and we don't have all the experience in the world.
Right.
I would never, ever claim to be, somebody who's got all this vast knowledge as compared to other people. I don't.
Right.
Everyone has very, very different experiences. But the last two were just sort of regards to a few things in class. And that was just like a nice amount of energy that you need to bring as a teacher.
Uh-huh.
Um, of course, there's days where I'm just like, oh man, like I can't be bothered to be here today. I got this group of kids that, they're just, they drive me crazy sometimes. But you've got to find the energy from somewhere. You've got to, it's almost like being a performer. You've got to get in there and
Exactly.
you've got to put on that monkey hat sometimes and be like, okay, this is what we're doing today. And then do a cartwheel and a backflip and punch the door down or something and get their attention and get them motivated. You've got to motivate yourself first and then you can motivate them. Energy is a big part of it.
Well, I mean, that's a. I mean, if the students see you and you're just
Dragging
kind
your
of
butt.
right. If they see this, it's like,
Grammar today.
damn, the teach don't want to even be here, kind of
Right.
thing. Why should I care? Why should I care at all?
Right.
And I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna be
Got to
into
bring
this
the
at all.
fire.
Got to bring the fire,
Fire and ice.
fire and desire, fire. But yeah, no, like I literally took each class that I did kind of like I was doing some sort of stand up.
Yeah.
Not in the sense of telling jokes and but
Maybe
being
for a
in
few
front of
coughs.
it. Right, being in front of an audience, and the students are my audience. So whatever I can to kind of entertain them and stuff in confines of also at least trying to teach them something
Within a
kind of
boundary,
thing.
yeah.
Right, yeah, you don't want to just kind of be up there, hey, because this
Dance to a
happens.
jig for 30 minutes.
Well, right. This happens with
Doing the Guile theme to the chicken 10-hour dance guy or whatever.
KFC. Jesus. This happens with I. There have been certain people. You've brought this up to me before. There are some people from America when they come over, they just don't want to, when doing like English conversational stuff. Not quite like classroom, but more of like one-on-ones or one, two or three students or something, where they'll sit there and be like, "Hey, have you ever heard this song?" Click, and
Right.
then listen to the song. You're like, "What the fuck are you?" Unless you're like trying to teach this is alliteration or this is personification. What does this mean in the
There's no
lyrics here?
cultural relevance for these kids when it comes to that. I mean,
Well, I meant just a standpoint of just kind of grammatical stuff or whatever. That I could understand. I could understand that if you're doing like a lyric analysis of it
you could,
for
but
a
generally
for a
speaking,
higher student.
the people that are doing that are just killing time. They just don't have
Oh yeah,
anything
oh
planned
yeah,
for the
oh yeah.
class. They have no idea what to do. So generally speaking, they bring in their computer or their phone or whatever, and they just say, "Listen to this song. I like it. It's an English song." So they think, "Oh, it's English. That means it's relevant." No,
Yeah.
it doesn't. You can bring in things that you feel are relevant that are to your culture. You could bring in I have not recently, but I have brought in a comic book, and I
Uh-huh.
was like, okay, look at this comic book, and these are older kids, quite a bit older, middle school kid. I have a small group with just two kids actually, and I was like, oh, take a look at this comic book. You know, they talk about the Marvel movies once in a while. They talk about Thor and Iron Man and stuff. So I was like, oh, it's like I've got some comics. I was like, why don't you take a look at this? So I showed them, and I was like, oh, this looks quite a bit different than uh, the comics you read, right?
Uh,
They read the
Manhwa.
manhwa, which is just like manga, the same kind of format, black and white, and more like paperback books. And I've got like some graphic novels. I was like, oh, so kind of look at this, and I was like, look, it's all colored. It's like, standard comic in North America is 32 pages, yada yada yada. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, oh, does this look very different than the movies and all the stuff. So that can be good, but I don't bring in a comic every day and I'm like, all right, well, you
Right.
got to analyze this page. And I mean, I could do that. That could be useful, but I'm
Well, I
not just
mean,
like, hey,
yeah.
did you dudes check out, this latest Deadpool comic?
Hey,
He cuts
Brasif.
off this dude's
Hey.
arm and stuff in there. It's just-
Sweet.
no,
Look at that.
I'll talk about if a movie comes out and I think they've seen it, like a Marvel movie, something that seems within their realm of possibility. I don't come in and talk about uh, some R-rated film that I can see but they can't see, and we'll talk about it for a few minutes. But then it's like, all right, it's time to get to work now. You can do these things, but just bringing in music, I've seen it a few times, and I'm just shaking my head, just thinking, what are you doing? You're just wasting time.
Right.
You have nothing to do. These kids have other things. If their parents knew that they were paying money for you to just sit there and play your favorite AC/DC song, it wasn't even that. Well, if it was AC/DC, I'd probably shaking my head like, yeah. But it was whatever, some pop music. I don't really care. It's got to be something that's useful. Let's say you have a talent show and you're like, okay, why don't you choose one of these 5 songs that I think you could sing? That's different. But if it's just, oh, we're going to listen to some music, or if they're doing book work and you're like, I'm going to just turn on some English music in the background, I'm going to put it low. And if it seems feasible, like you probably wouldn't be playing AC/DC or Queen. That might be a little hard for you could, but
Something that's
you could, but
not distracting.
right. If you want them to learn some songs, fine, but you've got to find a way to connect it properly.
Right. Well, yeah, I did that once with a Christmas class I was doing.
Oh, but
They
that's
were
that's totally the kindergarten kids. We bring in Christmas songs all the time. That makes sense,
right.
right?
Yeah, that's more themed kind
Right.
of thing. That
That's
makes sense,
that
not
totally
just
makes
listen to
sense.
Pink Floyd. It's like, oh
Right. We're
fuck.
gonna listen to the entirety of The Wall, and the kindergarten kids would just be like, "What? Like, how can you eat your
Right.
pudding if you don't eat your meat?" Although I
Right.
did have a good joke the other day with a teacher. We were saying we should just have the kids watch like the animated animation of The Wall and just see what they would think. Like
I've
they would
never
be
seen the
so,
animation of the wall.
whoa, this is so beyond what they can comprehend. Just as a joke, of course, we didn't.
I have no idea. What's the animation?
Oh, The Wall?
I've never seen the
Oh, there's like
animation
a
before.
video that has just it's really bizarre and unique.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you can see it on YouTube, but
Artistique.
yeah, quite a bit. So, yeah, some of the imagery you might have seen around. There's those hammers that are almost walking like legs, and I'll point it out to you. You've probably seen some.
Sometime later.
Anyway, some other time.
Yeah.
The other thing I really wanted to just very quickly, because it's starting to get drawn out here, touch was just being fair and learning how to treat each group of students differently. I know some teachers don't like doing that, but in my personal experience with kids is I cannot, even if they're the same age group, I can't treat them the same.
They're not the same.
They're not the same. But I know some
Right.
teachers will try to do that, and it can work to a point. Some strategies will work and some will just bomb out. You might have a class of kids that just fit so well together and they're so well behaved and they listen to everything you say and they try really hard. Obviously, you can't treat them the same as a group that's just not listening well. You
Right.
have to employ a different strategy to get their attention and to discipline them, at least what you would feel properly, I suppose. The other kids, you're just not having to discipline them. They want to work. They're hardworking students. So you have to really adjust yourself for each class. That kind of ties in with the energy thing. If I know a certain group of kids are just going to work automatically, I'm going to employ different energy for them. I'm also going to employ different humor and different ways of talking to them. You're going to be very different in each class. You're basically, as soon as you walk out of the class, you grab another ball cap and you become another, you find another occupation.
Personality changes.
Personality changes. You find another occupation. You're wearing the hard hat with the bad kids, so you become like a construction worker or a drill instructor. And then with the good kids, you put on your baseball cap and you're just throwing the ball out in the backyard or whatever. This is really stupid analogies, but just that's how you got to approach it, right? You do have to approach the kids in different ways. And that's another thing that I've found is quite challenging when I'm teaching and when I see other people teaching and for new teachers for sure.
Yeah, it can be very difficult, and I guess it kind of helps with because of kind of not being there constantly. In a way, it kind of helps. So I see a very large array of different sizes when it comes to the classes.
Right.
So, for example, one class, the smallest is 4 students.
Mm-hmm.
Four students. And then after that, it's like the largest class I ever had was combined. It doesn't really count, but on a normal basis was 39 students.
That's a big class.
Right, and like to combine, there's sometimes where they combined the two of them together, which made like 78 kids. So
was there at least a helper teacher or something?
Well, yeah.
Okay,
The
still,
thing is with that, they always have the kind of the homeroom teacher and stuff. So there's always that homeroom teacher there. However, some of them don't give 2 flying shits about helping at all, and so they're kind of just doing whatever.
Crossword puzzles in the back.
However, I will say for the most part, a lot of the teachers that I've been with, I've used them kind of as a way to kind of demonstrate to the kids different sort of conversational things or something, and they've been very, very helpful. So I will say that. So
it's always a good plus.
So something that you had kind of mentioned before was about time management, and this is I don't know how for me, classes, elementary schools are 45 minutes, middle school are 45 minutes or 50 minutes, depending on the time of the year.
Right.
The cram school, they're 50 minutes. And I will say this, for whatever reason, 50 minutes feels like an eternity.
It's pretty long.
It's weird. It's so weird. It's a 5-minute difference, but that 5 minutes like sinks into you and digs deep. It steals a little bit of your soul each time, kind of thing.
Right.
And, time management, it can be an incredibly tricky thing. Now, somebody who I'm training at first, and it doesn't seem to be as big of an issue in Japan with maybe just with the company or in general. They don't have an issue if you look at the clock to make sure you're trying to like keep in time with what you're supposed to be teaching, kind of thing. I don't know if that's quite the case for your place, or if
I've never ever had anyone say anything at any places I've taught at. I'll constantly check my watch and I'll constantly look at the clock. I've never been confronted about, oh, you're just, stalling for time. I'm always checking to see, oh, I've got 10 minutes and I've been chirping away about, whatever else, and I've got to finish this page of work or something.
Right, yeah, and I know for me personally, I had this image of when people look at the clock, they're kind of, how much longer kind of thing, and
That's true.
right, but that's not quite the how you should feel when you're
Right.
checking the clock. You're kind of like, okay, and this really comes from experience. So it's very understandable for somebody new might not quite have that innate ability to kind of be like, okay, I have, another 10 minutes and still need to do X, Y, Z
Right.
kind of thing. And that'll come over time.
Right.
If you don't get that very early on. And it is a very difficult thing to kind of get adjusted to. But once you get adjusted to it, it makes things so much easier. It makes it does. You get it. You're able to, because you're not wasting what valuable little brain cells you have left to kind of be like, shit, got to do all this math in my head at a time. Fuck, I got 30 kids. I got to do this. So, like, I know some people. I had it happen a couple times very early on, and then it never happened again. But where the timing for doing like a game or something just didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are very distraught. They're like, well, I had no game,
Right.
kind of thing. And that sucks. That sucks when you kind of pretty much disappointed your audience, disappointed the students kind of thing. And you kind of, weren't able to kind of give them a good enough really experience. And they're kind of like, oh, great, kind of thing. So I don't know. I other than, kind of getting used to a rhythm, or just kind of checking your watch, it's really hard to I don't know. It's really hard to kind of build up a kind of body clock for class time and stuff. I don't know if you know of any other kind of tricks to do it there.
It's tough, as you said. I think it's not really something you can teach very well. It's something you just have to almost learn on the fly.
Mm.
Because usually when you start out, and even still now, you have the best of intentions and you think, okay, I've got this wonderful lesson plan set up. Or sometimes even you have an idea of what you're going to do and you don't necessarily have a full lesson plan or outline quite set up. But you've got, okay, I know I need to complete this task or assignment within set amount of time. And it really just depends on the moment and the day and the kids. It depends on so many factors coming together to actually have a proper class. I would probably say I pretty much never probably have a full proper class, just based on all those factors. A kid comes in and is like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom or whatever. It's like, okay, all of you kids, you go to the bathroom now. Start of class. There you go. You've just lost 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 minutes, depending on what's going on in the bathroom or whatever. So there's just so many things that pretty much bog you down. And this goes back to the flexibility thing a lot, right?
Right.
You pretty much got to think on your feet almost all the time. It doesn't even matter how many students you have. I mean, the bigger the class, that can sometimes be beneficial in some ways. If you set an activity for them to do, and let's say it's like a chain activity, so the first 2 kids do something and it's followed down the line by all the kids. Well, you've just bought yourself another 2 minutes to think on your feet, basically. While they're doing that, you've got to be thinking about what you're going to put together right now, because you've only got 20 minutes of class lesson time, and despite what your lesson plan said, you should be at this point in the lesson, and you're not. So I don't know. I think it's just a lot of thinking on your feet. And for all the classroom stuff I've learned as a teacher and stuff, none of that helps with that. It just doesn't. They'll give you all their best intentions to be like, okay, you got to make this wonderful lesson plan and blah, blah, blah. I pretty much can't even deal with lesson plans anymore because they just go to hell. in it, like within the first 2 minutes. Usually it's just like, okay, I know we've got to do this book today. I know I need them to learn this sentence today, and I know I need them to memorize this vocabulary. So I'm like in my head, and I'm not trying to sound arrogant or like I'm the best at it or anything, but I will probably come up with a new game within the next like 30 seconds in my brain. Okay, so we're going to do this, this is our game today. And I'm kind of become fairly good at thinking on my feet for the most part. There's not too many times where I'm just standing around and it's kind of that dead air moment where there's like nothing going on. And as soon as if I do have that moment, I just start telling a joke. Like, okay, and I'm doing that because I'm actually thinking in my brain, what am I going to do next? So I'll start like drawing a funny picture on the board. I'm like, okay, so there's this, and I just start telling a story or something to kind of grab their attention again. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, I've got to figure out, okay, we've got to do page 7 and this and this and this. And I'm kind of processing these things as I'm going along.
Right.
That doesn't work for everyone. Some people really need to have like their lesson plan right on the front board and they're looking at it and they're like, okay, we've done this, check, done this. So some people, everyone has a different way of approaching it. I don't know what your preferred way of doing it is, but I'm a little bit of the fly on the feet to a point, just because of, just in my experience, all the factors that are going on in the class and stuff. Kids coming in late, that kind of stuff.
I try to, if I have a, probably the one thing I will have in my head is I want to do this, but I don't put like concrete, I need to take this long, I need to do this, you know. I kind of like, oh, I want to teach this. And how I go about it is I'm very loose with it. So I'll get to the class and pretty much I do some sort of warm-up with the kids prior to, just because I don't see them so often.
Right.
So I try to do something where it's like phonetics. So like I'll put up letters on the boards and stuff and kind of go over the like certain phonetics of the sounds and stuff, and we'll kind of have funny games with it and stuff. Like with doing a D sound, like like and so they're kind of repeating after me, you know, like D d. So like D d, like D d, like D d, and then like I'll do like the Mario theme or something. The kids love, you know, because they know the Mario. So I'm like da 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 da, and they're like da 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 da, and, you know, they get kind of, it sticks in their head that, you know, that's a D sound. So they're like, okay, da 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 da, you know, because in Japanese, right, da, da, da. They don't have the in Japanese, they have actual like words for onomatopoeias.
Mm-hmm.
In English, yeah, we do, but we're kind of like boom,
yeah, right.
You know, we're making kind of sounds and stuff with it. They don't do that as much. So any sort of sounds that you do with your mouth, they get like, whoa, what are you doing, kind of thing. And so my one friend, coworker who's also an ALT, he also does, he's a lot more like he does a little bit more dance stuff with it. I do a lot more audio or orally kind of thing, where he does kind of motions as well, which is really clever. Like with that, like an ah sound, he'll kind of do like the eureka, like slam your hand into your fist into your hand kind of thing, like you know, kind of thing. Yeah, I'm very loose with it. I'm not like, oh, I gotta have all this, and then the only thing is if I'll have like the idea that I want to teach, and then I'll probably, like, this might be kind of bad, but I always make sure I spend some time kind of thinking up clever new games that they might not have like tried to play before or something. So I'm always trying to think of something a little different for them, and I'm like, okay, let's try something like this, or let's try something like this, kind of thing, or something. So
nice.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we have a little bit in common with that, from the sounds of it.
Yeah, seems a little bit.
Right. That's just to reiterate, it really is something that you just have to get comfortable with, and some people just never do. They just they like doing it their systematic way, and it works really well for them. But I try to do that, and I typically can do it when I'm put on the spot by another teacher. Let's say like not so much like I'm trying to help train a teacher or anything, but more so I'm in a classroom and my task is to follow a lesson plan that I've put together. I'm really good at like faking it when it comes to that stuff. Like when they're like, okay, I want you to make a lesson plan and these are the items you need to cover today. So whatever phonics portion or whatever they assign to you, right?
Um,
And I can just walk up and I'll be like, okay. So I'll spend some time obviously before and I'll be like, okay, this is what they specifically want. So I'll outline it and I'll do it and I'll be like, I'll do it kind of robotically the way they kind of want it. And then they're like, oh, that was excellent. And then I'll go in the classroom and I won't do that at all. So uh, it's a very funny thing with kind of being a teacher and sort of also showing how to be a teacher. They're two completely different things in a lot of ways. So.
right, right, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Right, a little bit. So I think the biggest thing is also teachers are very territorial, extremely territorial. You do not go into another teacher's class unless you know them fairly well. Like you do not walk in there because teachers they'll give you the big growl and
They're babies.
get out of my room kind of thing. There could be no students in there and they'll be territorial. It's just it's I'm not joking about that. Teachers are
Oh no, no,
very
no.
defensive about their teaching ability, their teaching style. And they, generally speaking, a lot of teachers do not like being, I wouldn't say criticized, but they don't like critical input, generally speaking. It's a very interesting thing when you have to talk to somebody else about their teaching style. Even myself at times, I'm not going to lie. There's things where I'm like, you know what? I can't sort of, I wouldn't say fix, but I can't really adjust myself to do something that somebody else wants me to do in the classroom. It can be very challenging for me because that's just not my personality as a teacher. Um, I don't know if you've encountered like other teachers in that sort of way and stuff, but
No,
uh,
no, no. I know one in particular that I worked with for the first time this year. He was a middle school English teacher. He is a middle school English teacher. He's got his method to the madness. It's very systematic and stuff.
mhm,
And I don't get to do much in the way of input. Only only when he needs it, kind of thing. Okay, kind of. But I don't try to be like, oh, we should do this kind of thing. This is how let's try it this way, sort of thing. I'm like, this is what he does. I'm
right.
not gonna. You kind of,
Don't step
if
on
you tried
toes.
it, right. You get to a point where you're just like, yeah. I mean, if that's what he's doing, that's what he's doing. I'm not gonna be like, oh, well, the fuck's, try this way. Add me more. I need to be center stage, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see, and teachers won't ever talk about it generally. They don't kind of admit that they are that way, which is
Mm.
also very interesting. Um, they might say the same thing that I've just said. They might say, "Oh, teachers are territorial," but they never like to admit it for some reason as well. I think they view that as being very negative. Like, oh, I wouldn't quite say it's negative. It's just the way you sort of said, it's almost like this parental position. So you're kind of defensive about your students for one, but then also about yourself, right? You don't like to be challenged because you think, well, I would like to think I'm doing a good job with these students.
Right, whereas with some other jobs, you can kind of shirk like the failure on Bob down at IT. It's all that asshole's fault, kind of thing.
Zootroy.
Zootroy? What the?
So there was like a guy on Simpsons, Zootroy or something. They were always trying to pin it on him or something.
Oh,
So like he was like, some foreign workers or something,
oh,
Zootroy.
jeez. But yeah, so I mean, kind of trying to do that, and whereas this is for the most
It's
part,
all on
it's
you
it's
pretty
resting on you,
pretty
right?
much. Yeah,
So yeah,
it
when
really
there are
does. And
criticisms, you have to be very open to it, and I've been really open to it, but I've also had a very huge benefit of the person before me, not the Nick guy, but there was kind of a intermediate person in between when Nick left and when I came in.
mhm.
That person sucked from what I heard. So I had a huge benefit of just not being that guy. Kind of thing.
That can be the case too. I mean, I don't know. A lot of things boil down to your attitude in
Right,
general.
right, right,
So
right. I mean, you're dealing with kids. Don't Your personal stuff has no it's not their problem. It's
Right.
your
It's really
problem.
not. So
Don't bring it. That's definitely something. Yeah, it's not for others. If you're in a pissy mood or something, if you're in a pissy mood because somebody irked you or whatever, if you're having beef with one of the teachers, that's between you and that other person, not
right.
between the kids. Don't bring that up. If there is something emotional, say something really tragic happens, and you have to put on a brave face.
Right.
If there's any way that you're like, I can't really do this right now. I know, for example, somebody whose father passed away, and they, like, I have to take a couple days off.
Right.
That I understand.
Yeah.
That's fine. But that's, don't be bringing this up to the kids like crying and shit. That's
Right.
not for them. They don't need that.
Right.
They got their own stuff. The kids, they're dealing with their own thing.
Their universe is a lot different than yours. So
Right.
that's why teaching kindergarten kids is the best. Because you can come in with the shittiest mood. You could have had the worst night of your life or whatever. Or you get into a car accident or whatever. And you walk in and you're all angry and you kind of throw on that okay, I shouldn't be angry. And then a kid walks up to you and all they say is, teacher, what? I farted. And you're like, you have to laugh at it. You can't help but laugh at that kind of stuff. So that's one of the huge benefits of the kindergarten kids often is that they just say funny stuff. So you're just like, rah, how could I be mad at you kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, attitude and territorial and all that stuff is, they're kind of touchy subjects for teachers, but you can't take everything to heart. I would suggest definitely take the criticism, take it for what it is, filter out some of the stuff. I don't think you should take it all because I think there's a lot of times where the people that do see what you're doing, they only get a fraction of that moment of what you're doing.
Right.
They're not there every day to see you teach and such. So you can kind of filter out some of the things that you're like, well, I personally think that was just a bad moment, or a personal thing that, this didn't go well because ... So I would suggest that not everything has to be taken into account, but definitely take some of the bigger things into account and try to improve yourself with those supposed issues. But
Well, then plus, I mean, if it's coming from another teacher, like in the company kind of thing or something, probably they'll be projecting their teaching styles onto you.
that too.
So keep that in mind. I mean, even though Sushi and I seem to have some very similar kind of ways that we approach class, there's bound to be certain things that he would be like, what are you doing?
Oh,
Why
of
are
course,
you doing this?"
absolutely.
I would be probably the same.
You'd be
Like, what are
horrified
you doing?
sitting in my room, I'm sure. So what the hell?
What is this mess?
Oh,
What?
some days it is literally a mess. So, like going into stories with the kids and stuff is for sure. It's as I've already said numerous times, and I hate repeating it, but it's every day is totally different, and you got to treat it that way. Every class is totally different. Every minute is totally different. So.
Right.
1 minute, the kids could be fine and writing things down. The next minute, there could be a kid using a blowtorch on the garbage can for all you know. Like, not maybe necessarily that extreme, but things happen in a flash. So you got to remember, you are taking care of a group of people. You could have, if it's the young kids, we've had accidents. Kids have peed their pants and stuff before. It happens, and you have to deal with it. You can't just freak out and be like, oh my, what are you doing? Why didn't you go to the bathroom or something? You've got to just be calm about it. Try not to draw attention to things like that, and go with the flow.
Exactly.
There's plenty of other things. We could turn this into a running weekly series if we really wanted to. But, we didn't really initially sort of throw out the line that if anybody's got questions, again, Taylor and I are not the ultimate experts on teaching. No one humanly possibly ever could be, but maybe we could try to help out with a few things if somebody does have interest in becoming an ESL teacher, or just even in general a teacher. I might be able to help a little bit, but I can't help with the grand scheme of things perhaps. But yeah, this is hopefully is not a really boring topic. It might be. I kind of don't think we're going to get a lot of hits on YouTube, to be honest.
No,
But
no, no, no,
I
no,
think a
no,
few people will
fuck that.
listen.
That's no, I mean, people are interested. Are interested. If they're not, oh
Right.
well. I personally wanted to talk to this about with you and stuff, and I know it's a little, yeah, it is very, for lack of a better word, heavy. There's a lot of stuff kind of being thrown around and stuff, but um, I mean, it's something that I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to feel doing it, and it's good to kind of, especially now that I'm at the end of
Mhm.
it, kind of thing. My mom has kind of broached me about possibly doing it because there is a Japanese community that's near where my mother
Okay.
lives and stuff that she's like, oh, you could, kind of tutor English to kids. And I'm like, oh, I could. It's not off the
Right.
table, but it's yeah. I don't know what kind of memories you've had or kind of experiences you've had with that in general, but I've had some very very kind of interesting, just fun ones because I only have them for the one class, but if I don't have a class, I'll kind of wander around and join in different activities, or I'll talk with the teachers. That's one thing I don't think a lot of other uh, people in my position do.
Mhm.
Well, I don't want to say like every one of them, but there's definitely some that kind of shy away from talking to the teachers, or the teachers just don't even really, maybe because they're doing their own stuff. They're busy or
Right.
something, so it can be kind of hard to find time to chat or something. But I've had some very wonderful conversations with the principals of the school and stuff of different schools that I've been to, and I enjoyed very much so having those conversations, and in some of my free periods joining in PE classes and or after school joining in club activities and stuff, and just kind of
An active
how to put
member of
this
the school
right
school culture and
function.
function.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't like yes, sure. You're not there all the time. It's hard to remember names. It is. If in my instance, in my case, you see them, once a month or
Mhm.
something. It's hard to remember.
Sure.
Yeah, if you have 300 kids at a school and you only see them once a month, it's gonna take you a while to memorize their names unless you're like
A
a
robot.
genius or something. Right, right. And so, I mean, yeah, it is difficult remembering names, but you don't have to call out that person's name. I generally do this when I'm talking with people. I don't just say their names when I'm talking
Right.
to them. It's just kind of how I talk. I've noticed it for the longest time, and I just deal
Well,
with
I
it.
think in general, most people don't. I mean, unless you're trying to gather attention from them because they're in a group or something.
Right, right,
Generally
right.
speaking, if I'm speaking to the students, I might say their name because I need to get their attention, or
Right.
uh, I'm doing questions, so I want them to raise their hands or whatever. But if I'm having a face-to-face conversation, I wouldn't. But I suppose I'm maybe different with you in that. Then I like to call the students names because it just usually instantly gets their attention to do something. So
Oh, right, right, right. Well, I mean, like in class or something, yeah, in the halls or something. Um, Usually I always try to make some sort of stupid game out of kind of interacting with the
mhm.
kids. So like if walking down the halls, they say like, "Oh, hello, Mr. Taylor. Hello, Taylor Sensei." I'm like, "Oh, hello," and then I'll like kind of like dead stop, kind of like Wild Wild West in the hall kind of thing. I'll just be kind of like freeze in motion. To kind of what the hell is he doing? And then I might like run at him or something. Oh, not like full run
Barrel
at him,
into them.
but kind
Ah!
right, right, right. Kind of go after him or something. Just being goofy,
Yeah,
just kind
I've
of
definitely
interact
done that
with
with the elementary and especially the kindergarten kids. But sometimes they get a little out of hand, and the kindergarten kids are
them.
like screaming
Oh,
and they're
right,
running.
right.
So it's like, oh yeah, and then it's
You're
like,
like, oh,
oh, I probably
what have
shouldn't
I
have
done? What
played that
Pandora's
game
box have I
of
opened?
I'm gonna chase you and you're gonna scream game. That's usually not a not a good one usually.
Right.
I've kind of got the same thing with you. I think at just about every school I've been at, um, if I'm on break or whatnot, because I'm typically at the same school, I'm not doing what you do where I have to bounce around a lot. I done a little bit, but not quite as much as you. But if I'm at a school, I try to learn most of the kids' names at the school,
Uh-huh.
even if I don't teach them. I'll ask. There's just certain kids that typically stand out. You just kind of know who they are. You just like, okay, I've
Right,
seen this
right.
kid a bunch of times. What's his name? I ask whoever their teacher is, what's his name? And so you kind of get a rapport with some of those kids that you don't even teach sometimes. Um, but I've kind of got a bit of the problem like you were. I'm sort of the resident clown, like just the resident idiot sort of at my school, where I could just be sitting at my desk and like I might just be like, I'm just going to go for a walk in the hallway and like just to sort of look around what's going on in the school when I'm on a break kind of thing. And so I'll walk around and sometimes I'll just like not necessarily like look into a class, but there's a lot of classes have windows, so just like kind of walking by, and sometimes the kids see you, and you're like, like point and like, hey,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a teacher there, and you're like, okay. So then I'll just bust in the room, like, hey, like what's going on? Like, and
What are
sometimes I
you?
think the teachers get mad because I'm like, well, I probably shouldn't have done that. Sometimes you can tell if it's okay. You can see a teacher's just like, okay, I can stop the lesson for 2 seconds if you just want to say hi, kind of thing. And so I'll do that. But like, some stuff like that is like, oh, what are you doing, guy? It's like, oh, sorry. So I get a little carried away sometimes where I'm trying to be too much of the like buddy buddy thing with the kids sometimes, where it's like, but the
Oh, right,
kindergarten
right,
kids is a little
right.
hard, right? Because you're almost like a brother or sister to them more than even a teacher at times, just because I don't know in Japan, but I presume as much that the kids are super affectionate, whether you want it to be or not. Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it's not like North America where if you're near a child, it's completely acceptable to like hug a kid here. No one would ever say anything to you unless it's obviously visible you're doing something completely wrong.
Right, and then
If
they're
you're
like,
just
oh,
like putting your arm around their shoulder and kind of giving like that one arm hug or over the top
right.
of their shoulder or something, that no one, I've never had anyone ever say anything to me. I've never, tried to insinuate anything odd or weird with the kids. And you obviously know which kids are much more comfortable, but generally speaking, they're all just like, I've had kids punch me in the nuts like so many times. Like
They
it's
try
not
to do
even
that with
funny
me.
how many times I've had kids. I've had a friend of mine who still lives here.
Ninja, like
He's a pretty big dude. He's a stocky guy. He's
pee blood from a kid.
oh he could eat these kids if he wanted to. He's a big guy. He's a big
I
stocky
was
guy.
saying, did he take a few
No, no, no.
shots to
Well,
the?
he was standing in class. He was just telling me this. I wasn't anywhere nearby when it happened. This is
Ah,
quite a few years ago, now, 5 or 6 or something. And he was just like, I'm in class, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, so I'm standing there, I'm talking away, and he's got these little kids that are literally 5 years old, 6 in Korean, and this one girl walks up. I don't know what the girl's name is now. She's a tiny little girl. The guy could pick her up with 2 fingers if he wanted to. He's a big, big muscle guy. So she walks up to him, and he's just talking away, and he's like, she walks up to me, and she just literally cups my, my, my testicles, and I'm like, what? He's like, I was just standing there. She just walks up and just literally cups me, and she's just like, she's trying to like play with my testicles, and she's just laughing, and I'm like, what are you doing?
that's
Like, what
weird.
are you
Oh
doing?
man. Uh,
And of course, the other kids are like,
oh,
hey, they start laughing. They know what's going on, right? They're not fools. They know that that's something she shouldn't be doing or any kid should be doing. So, and he's just like,
right.
oh, get out of here, you, whatever, I don't know if he said like brat or anything. He was like, oh, go sit down. What are you doing? Kind of thing. So there's been some awkward occasions with kids doing some things they shouldn't be doing, like that kind of stuff. The old butthole punch.
Right,
I think is
right,
that
right.
kancho in Japanese and
Yeah.
dongchim in Korean.
Don't cheat.
Dongchim. I don't understand that. It still happens to me. I still have kindergarten kids that new students that come in and think that it's funny and do it, and then
Yeah.
I have to grab them by the hand and give them like the big stare down, like don't do that. If you do that, I will jam a pipe up your butthole or something like.
I don't
I
say
don't say
that.
that, but I give them that look of like, if you do this, you're going to be in a big
Be in
world of hurt
trouble.
here. So, jokingly, I'll say it sometimes, like to the kids, and I'll like put my hands together like, okay, you don't do your homework, you're gonna get the big dong chim, and like I never do it, but I just like insinuate like with my arms like swinging them really high, like you're gonna go right into the sun. That's how hard I'm gonna hit you, kind of thing. So that kind of stuff,
Uh,
just sort of, you know the boundaries of certain kids that you can make certain jokes like that, and it won't be a problem. But I definitely quite a playful teacher when it comes to like, okay, you guys having a bad day? Let's talk about something fun for a few
lighten the mood.
minutes and try to, yeah, have a good time. I'm pretty laid back when it comes to teaching for the most part, unless the kids are being snots, then I'll do the 180. But try not to be. Try to definitely use the humor to get them back into it if you can, and stuff. So
Yeah, it's definitely something I noticed is that they're a lot more uh, affectionate younger when they're younger and stuff, and they always ask me to kind of like pick them up
yeah,
and stuff. And you
you
get
do
that line,
the
you're like, "There's
throw.
30 of you,
Some of the kids
and
want to be
I'm
thrown,
so
like where you throw them and catch them,
right,
and it's like,
right,
girl, all
right."
right. Like,
I don't get that as much just because they're kind of getting like in the 7, 8 and stuff, so you're a little
the
big
five
at
or
that
six year
point.
olds, yeah, but some of the bigger kids are still like, throw me, and I'm like, oh, you're a pretty big kid now. Like, it's not
Uh,
not
so
not.
you just kind of like fake it. Yeah, we're done now. No.
I'll like hold hands with them and I'll be like, okay, you jump, and I'll kind of just use your momentum to sort
Oh,
of
right,
throw
right,
you
right.
up, kind of thing.
Yeah. That or kind of like spin them around, like grab hands and stuff, and kind of like spin around.
The class
Uh,
was pretty small for that.
well, I meant outside because sometimes
We
outside.
don't really take them out for like a recess type
Uh,
deal. So
well, yeah, kind of have recess, so do that and stuff. You do that a couple times, you're like, yeah, we gotta stop this because you could feel their like grip is
right,
loosening and stuff. You
you don't want them to
don't
throw
no more.
up or anything either.
Well, just don't. Yeah, I don't want to like fling them across the school ground, kind of thing. Boop, 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 kind
Right.
of thing. Yeah. Yeah. There. Yeah. You did. Yeah.
But
uh,
and again, every different country is going to have different acceptability for kids and stuff. Maybe in Europe or wherever where I've not obviously taught, and you as well, uh, the standard's going to be different, right? Maybe a kindergarten, uh, maybe you've got to be very careful about, again, not touching the kids, even just holding a hand with them or something on a field trip might be unacceptable, or anything of that nature. So you got to really find out, uh, and
right.
find out as fast as possible so that you know, okay, this is okay to do
Where
this.
the
This
the
is not okay.
boundaries are.
And of course, there's things that you should, I would hope, know right away that is not okay. Um,
Right. For fuck's sake.
but
Yeah.
hey, there's a lot of people that have come over and done weird shit and made bad names for all everyone else, kind of thing, right? So
uh,
there is some caution sometimes, but generally speaking, I think most people are hoping that the teachers they're getting are going to be good people,
respectful of those
right?
boundaries.
Yeah, follow at least some sort of conduct.
Yeah, I mean there is yeah, you definitely have to have that. It is really and I hope that it's the attitude's a bit I don't know. I'm hoping it's not as crazy as it is in the States where you see, it doesn't like I don't know if it's quite true or not, but you see those where there's some older guy playing with a younger kid or something in the park, and people are like, yeah, this is a pedophile, and it's like it's the damn kid's
Grandfather or
father,
something, right?
or it's a grandfather, or something, and it's kind of like I really hope that that's toned down a bit, and it's to me it's really weird to kind of be I mean I understand, but not everybody's a fucking
Right.
pedophile or whatever, and it's just it's just because they're playing with a kid, whatever, it's just, oh, you're playing with a kid, okay, all you're doing, it gives you fucking exercise for
Oh,
one
oh man,
thing.
it really does.
Yeah, it wears you out. You're like, okay, I will sleep fucking soundly tonight, kind of thing. And it's just, yeah, it's that sort of thing. And it's really kind of been a very opening experience for that, kind of seeing how that's treated here as opposed to the
Mhm.
States, sort of thing. So yeah,
Nice.
I don't know. Yeah. So anything else you'd like to kind of add,
Um,
like last final words, sort of feelings on it?
there's obviously some personal stories we could go into and stuff, but that could take a very long time.
Even
Yeah,
longer?
so uh, I've had a lot of good and bad experiences in so many different levels. I've had bad jobs where things have just completely crumbled in a lot of ways, just due to myself, due to circumstances, due to all kinds of things. I would never just say, oh, it was totally the circumstances. Definitely my fault as well in some cases where uh, the full year didn't go well, or a short period of time didn't go well, or whatever. But generally speaking, I mean, I got into the field of teaching for a reason, and initially I was actually doing my degree with the focus on social studies for middle school or junior high and high school. And very quickly after graduating and then getting into the ESL field, I found that like I did the practicums in those, and I was like, this is fine. I don't mind it. It's nice because you can have decent conversations with these kids and stuff, and you can sort of keep up to date on history and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. But just generally speaking, teaching kids has been like the younger students has been much more gratifying in a lot of ways. Obviously, partly because you can see them grow that much faster. You're just like, whoa, that kid's suddenly doing so much better than 2 months ago, and such. That's part of it. But also just it helps me just sort of be a little free and still keep some roots of
Young at heart.
being young, just being a kid that didn't have many friends and didn't have a lot of money and stuff. I was alone a lot. So I sort of can kind of connect with kids in a different way in that regard. I try not to leave kids alone, try not to let them, be by themselves unless they really want to be. But I kind of bring a different perspective perhaps when it comes to that kind of thing. And so it's fun. It's a nice job, but I've got to work at it still. It's not like I could just walk in and everything's ready, good to go all the time. It's not. So, but it's a rewarding job. I don't really ask for anything in return. I don't think a teacher really ever should. When you do get something back, whether it's just a nice card from a kid or whatever, it's a nice reward. But generally speaking, you just go in to try to do a good job and have fun, and kind of just rinse and repeat a lot, but in a good way, not just like, I'm going into the factory, I gotta meet this quota or whatever. But yeah, no, I think it's a rewarding job if you really want it to be. And I think a lot of people that want to do it and just do it for a year, it's probably a good experience for them. And a lot of people that do it for more than a year uh, probably are doing it because they really found something that speaks to them in a lot of ways. How about you?
Yeah, I'd say that that last bit particularly. I mean, they do it for a year. Either they hated it or something, or they just
Right.
whatever. They
Moved
completely
on.
coming at it. Right, right. They're moving on for whatever reason, and that's it. And yeah, staying longer than a year, it really kind of makes you feel like got there's something in it that you're enjoying, and not for the sake of, oh, I'm getting
Monies.
money to pay off my loans and stuff like this. You should never do that. I mean, it's just not. I sure I've been slowly paying off my loans. My loans aren't still paid off. I know damn well with half the shit that's on that's slowly coming off of my my bookcases and stuff, or bookshelves and stuff, that I spent way too much money on stupid things, frivolous things. And, it's just it is more of just I personally probably think it's more of just to fill up a house instead of for anything else. But that's not what Prime Directive 1 was. It was to I'm doing this teaching thing. Let's see how this works. And then I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it ever since. And I I don't know if they ever did this with you, but what they do with at the public schools is something. It's really, really, really nice. And if you do make some wonderful connections with the schools, the students, the classes, and teachers and stuff, is that they will generally kind of not just even kind of say, oh, thank you for the year kind of thing, but they most part will kind of write you messages and stuff, and they put like together these little booklets. And so I have years and years of from classes and schools and stuff of these little booklets and little messages and stuff from all these sort of
Mm.
students. I've got like the seat cushion thing that I got made from one of the
Oh, nice.
grades, and like a thing that's kind of used for kind of like massaging my back
Is
kind
that
of
that
thing from.
stick?
I don't know if I showed you or not. It's not a stick. It's like a case that you can put something in to
Oh,
massage
okay.
back. And then another one made a big giant cushion for me and stuff.
For your big
And
booty?
oh yeah, for my big booty and things like that. And you read the messages and they're really really nice. For example, I changed one of my middle schools this year from one, like I had them for 3.5 years, and I loved being there. Like I really had a lot of fun with, uh, not just the students, but also with the teachers. The teachers were really nice and stuff. And I, um, I changed schools. And what they generally do is for the teachers who change schools, because they do this in Japan where they will change schools every X amount of years in the
Right.
district. Those who change the schools, they go back to those schools about a week or so into the school year to kind of give their farewells to the
Okay.
students and kind of give them kind of stuff. And I did that, and I got it's up on my wall right now, but I got a message from one of the teachers, kind of the English teacher that I had worked with and stuff, and he typed it up and stuff. But he had put some things on there, like pictures of stuff of years ago that I completely had forgotten that they had
Hmm.
taken. And it hit really, really hard, like seeing that kind of thing. And it just kind of, it was nice to see that, it's like, holy crap, A, I look so much younger. B, it's crazy that, it's been 3 years since that picture kind of thing, or it's been 2 years since that picture sort of thing, and looking at this and just how quickly it goes. It went by really really quickly, and I took note of that, and in particular because this was the last year, and I had kind of been thinking about it being my last year, and then stuff with my mother being a little bit ill kind of persuaded that to kind of happen a little quicker. Well, not a little quicker, but definitively. And so like I approached this last year with each of these schools, even though I was going to two new schools that this is last year, gonna make it as much as possible count, and just give 110 15% no matter what's going on in my life kind of thing. And yeah, you're supposed to kind of give your 110% to begin with, but um, I guess I tried to give 100%, 110 of 110 at that point
His
kind of thing.
heart grew
So
three
I was
sizes.
try right, trying to do as much as I could and stuff, and it and I guess I tried to busy myself with trying to keep that out of my mind of this is it for me kind of thing, because I've grown, because for 5 of the schools I taught them the whole time I've been here.
Mm.
And so that's 4.5 years of being at those same schools. So even though I only went once a month, or a week or so a month, it had grown over time. And seeing these kids go from third graders to seventh graders, or seeing them go from fourth graders to graduating junior high school and stuff, and you're talking about a whole bunch of different things, and they just doing different, just having a lot of really warm fun memories that it's not just from me, them coming to talk to me, but me just kind of end of, joining in their classes and having fun with them, totally screwing up things, hurting my ankle, and that sort of thing. And it like I got a bunch of messages from third grade about like kind of thanking me, but also because I told them I tried to like pass them kind of different like my thoughts and stuff when they were graduating, and I told them not to like let go of their dreams, sort of thing, and to see them reflect that back to me, because I told them how even though I'm going back to help with my mother, I'm also going to pretty much devote that to I haven't really mentioned this before, but by the time maybe they come out, but I'm also trying to work on a game, about that, but also to write
Mm.
stories, and that's and they were kind of like, oh, you want to finish? I want to read your story, kind of thing, and that not only am I trying to be supportive of them, but they are also trying to be supportive of me in a way that I've never really felt
Mm.
before with that sort of thing. Sure, you get your mother that
Pat on the
oh,
back.
try very hard. Right, right. But this is, these are the kids that not only have you cared for and tried to help, foster and kind of an enjoyable, fun time with, but they are giving that back to you in their own way, kind of
Right.
thing. And not only the students, but also the teachers and stuff. And it's just, it was just a very loving kind of experience. And I know I might sound kind of bleh to some people, but that's what it was. It was really a loving experience, and I grew so much from doing it as a person, and I hope that from them, how much I grew, I was able to help them grow twice as much from, if that makes any sense.
You're a damn thief. You suck the life out of them and absorb the energy. No, I mean, that's definitely true, though. As a teacher, you will be learning from the kids all the time. It doesn't matter how old you get or whatever. You're going to learn from the kids, and you should learn from the kids. So,
Right, and just yeah, and some of the things like thinking about it now is just really like if you do stay for a very long time and you're really really enjoying it, when you have to leave, it makes it really really emotional
right.
kind of thing. So yeah.
You build relationships that become like family in a lot of ways with certain teachers or students, or it can be any faculty members that are there. You might have only seen this one janitor. You saw them every day, but all you ever said to them was hi or just a nod or whatever. But you still kind of make a small connection with those people, and it's tough to just have to leave that. This is something we didn't
Yeah.
mention that I would have liked to, but I don't want to get it too involved here at the end, especially because it's a bit of a downer in a way. One thing I've had to learn is just to really almost be free of emotion in some regards with people, just in the fact that because of the nature of this job, a lot of turnover occurs.
Right.
So there will be some people that stay for however many years, few years or whatever, but a lot of people are just coming in and passing through. So I've made nice connections with certain teachers and students and stuff, but I'm also very devoid of just having strong attachments because I know they're going to move on, and I wish them well and I hope they do well, and I'm very thankful for those moments that I've been able to share with them, but
Uh,
also I'm very willing to let go of like, and I hope that they do something not necessarily better, but I hope they are feeling better and they do something they want to do beyond
right,
this
right. That yeah,
situation.
yeah.
Well, except for some people, I'm just like, yeah, you can go back to whatever, deep dank hole you crawled out of, go back there kind of thing.
Whatever angriness you.
Right. Well, not to like point out
Yeah.
specific people or anything, but majority of the ones that I've had not that great of relationships with have kind of been Americans that have uh,
I
very,
say it
very
is.
strong opinions about wherever they are. They're just kind of like, oh, this place is crap. Not necessarily like saying, oh, America's better. I had one guy that was like that, but just generally being like, I don't like this place. The end. Not really going beyond that sort of sentiment of just, oh, this place is crap. So Not only
Yeah, it's
Americans,
dogging on.
there's been Australians and New Zealanders and Canadians and South Africans. I've worked with some South Africans, so it all depends, of course, on the people. But just some of the people I've encountered just happened to be American for whatever reason. They just happened to be. So, but anyways, just you kind of have to be flexible with your emotions a little bit too, in a way, and it's kind of hard to do that. It's kind of strange in a way too. Uh, you kind of become a family with somebody for a little while, and then it's like, okay, you're free. You're, they're gonna go on their way. That's just the nature of the
Right,
beast. It's gonna happen. So it's tough, and it's tough to keep connected with those people, especially so many people are coming from so many places, and it's an interesting sort of short-term multicultural I don't know, just place, if you will, and then it's like,
stirring
and then
pot.
they're out, and then the new people are in. So
Yeah, as you just said earlier, if anybody has any interest and you want to ask questions about our experiences, definitely feel free to do so. As both, we should have prefaced it by it, but I guess we'll, you know, after thought it, but or mid thought too. But Sushi and I are not like experts at it, kind of thing. We're just kind of giving our experiences and what we've learned from it, and kind of expressing those experiences, and yeah. So don't say don't as I said before, take everything with a grain of
this is
salt.
doctrine or anything.
Right. Everybody's got their own experiences with it. Everybody has their own classes, their everything. There's just some things that we kind of feel strongly about certain things that, don't bring personal stuff into classroom. Yeah, there's certain things where you shouldn't do that. If you are interested in it, I highly recommend giving it a shot. And maybe it won't work. Maybe it's not really what you're going for, but if you do enjoy it, it is an incredibly rewarding experience that will stick with you, and as I said before, it really helps kind of shape how you approach things as you get older, and just kind of change maybe some things you didn't like about yourself before that you've kind of really worked on, and hopefully you can kind of instill some good manners, and well, not just manners, but good lessons on those who you are teaching and stuff. So
Yeah, it's a good way to roll out of this.
right. So yeah, that's it. So thanks for listening, and have a good day.